how well defined do you have the off-screen sound? Did you have it figured out from script, or you found it on post-production?
I don't believe so much in script giving a direct instruction as I explained for the film. We need script to elaborate the subject and to see what to as I explained, it's expensive medium. Especially now everybody's protected in the school, but when you go out there, everybody will see it and they say, okay, this costs this. So Jean-Luc Godard said that scripts were invented in Los Angeles by expert comptable. But so it's not so much. I think we should not overemphasize about the pre-scripting thing. But the script is an important component, but every component should be organic. We even got the new one. Any other questions? Yes.
You said that you feel like an outsider in your own country. Is that right? Like at first, when they read about you, you said that. And
don't believe the press.
but I thought about a writer that's called Yehuda Amichai.
Yes.
That he was also from Germany.
Yes.
And then
he's a great poet.
And he became like the greatest poet of Israel. So I wanted to ask you if you feel related in a certain way to that kind of being and not being part.
I think it's good to be and not to be for everybody. It's not just about Israel. It's about every country. I mean, you have good reasons to be and not to be in Mexico and in France, because Benoit wants to stay in Mexico. And, we have to apply our judgment. It's not specific to Israel. I think it's about modernity. Modernity, people are deracinated. That's it. Your ancestors, where they come from?
Mexico.
And before?
Spain, maybe.
Yeah. When did they come from Spain?
When?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think I'm Mexican.
No. Okay. Good. The exercise is to make you do investigation after our short meeting today. Next time I come, I want you to tell me the story of the family. Because it is interesting. Everybody has interesting story. And we cannot live just in the contemporary situation. But maybe he has something else to ask.
Just another question.
I felt you want to ask something.
See, I feel like first I thought that the cinema could change things, and then I am not really sure about it. So I wanted to ask you how can cinema be like strongly political and really change the reality of things in this world that it seems that like little things can really change.
I mean, I don't think that, not just cinema, I think the arts, they don't change the reality. But they can make people think. It's a good beginning. And I don't think even they should. Because if they feel that they should, you start to make a propagandistic film. Propagandistic does mean sometimes you can make propaganda even for the good cause. It's still a problem because it's propaganda. Let's say, I don't like Michael Moore, for instance. I don't like him. Why? Because I agree with him politically against the Iraq war and so on, but why do you have to make a demagogic movie? In a way, if you make a demagogic movie, I start to have questions, because you lose me. So do things which make people think, not too indoctrinated, taking into account that the arts don't change the reality, but they still are important to leave a trace. Okay? And I always use an example which is not coming from cinema. Let's take Picasso. Okay? So 1937, the Germans bomb out the Basque village of Guernica, right? The Guernica. Picasso, his medium is painting. So he makes this painting about the destruction of the village in the Basque village. Okay, maybe that's now the most well-known of all the enormous hundreds and tens of thousands of Picasso works. It was very productive. But this particular one, is a very important piece. Okay, so Picasso does a painting because he's very shocked by the brutality of the German bombardment. And it didn't change the history. Why? Because Franco, maybe your family came during the Civil War, maybe, I don't know. Because Franco stayed in power, so it didn't change the reality. But today, most people, some of them even know Guernica more than they know Franco. And also, Picasso was very smart. He said that the painting, when he painted, it was shown in the MoMA in New York, will not go back to Spain as long as Franco is alive. So he used what we filmmakers, artists have, it's a symbolic power, to sanction, to say this painting will stay as long as this guy is alive. Okay, now after his death, now it's in Madrid, in the Reina Sofia. I recommend you to see it. It's a very important piece. And it went back to, the Americans tried to keep it, to manipulate it, but it was written and they gave it to Spain. Okay. Now what happens, okay? I think maybe 3 years ago or 4 years ago, there is a new prime minister, socialist prime minister in Spain. And what did he decide? The first act that he would do is to take the bones of Franco from the Kitsch mausoleum that he built to himself out to a normal cemetery. And you say, why did he say, what is the power that made it in the top of his political action? Because you asked about politics. It is only this work of Picasso, of political militants, of filmmakers, of Saint-Tron, of Alain René, who did La Guerre est finie, and all these people who kept the memory. So memory is a very important thing to change, but it's not instantaneous. Okay? Good. You have a question.
Yes, I found it very interesting that you mentioned already two things about an artist compromise. Yesterday, the day before, you mentioned observation,
Yeah.
which is sort of research,
Yeah.
And right now, ethics,
Yes.
which probably come before writing the script. So I would ask you if you could please talk a little bit more about this, about how to feed or nurture or the creator's compromise.
Yes. I don't know if the word compromise, but you know, I love the place I was born, okay? It has a lot of fantastic people, creative, sensitive. I don't agree with the politics, okay? But still, the fact that I don't agree with the politics doesn't mean that I don't love some things. So it's complex. We have a complex relation to a place where we belong to the culture. Benoit doesn't like the Bible. I like the Bible. I'm not religious. I like the Bible. I think it's a great, you said ethics, it's a great lesson about ethics. And also the Old Testament is really, because the Jewish religion, unlike Christianity and Islam, are not proselyte. They don't have a project to convert everybody to be like them. Christianity destroyed all of Latin America and many other places by very violence against the indigenous people, terrible. And also against the Jews, anti-Semitism. The Jews are not, they don't have this project that everybody should be. But I think that all these parameters, they really contribute to your thinking about ethics. And I think that even what I said, I mean, obviously I don't want to pick on Michael Moore too much, but it's a question of ethics. So when you take a subject like the Iraq War, which is it's a good subject, it deserves to make strong films, you have to work to inspire the people to think, not to be a robot. But I cannot give you a recipe how to do it. What do you say, Maria?
Maybe you can refer to the way we dealt with the writing of scene and then because it's also about ethics. But not
if you want, but later on, I'll open to more questions. You can explain about it. Okay, there's some other question was it, no? Yes.
I have a couple of questions, but now I have one like is like the one that did my partner. So, what's your view on modern cinema? Well, let me explain this. Lately, I've been thinking when I start school, I want to do like commercial things and like biggest blockbusters. And now I've changed my mind because a couple of nights ago I was reading, but I want to watch a series or I want to watch a movie. And also we have TikTok and social media. I was thinking that that we as filmmakers should be more as a Proust or these biggest authors from literature of the 18th century, because now we have so much sources of entertaining, and when I watched your movie, I was thinking and what the characters said in the movie, and it happens not as much in the modern movies, I think so. I don't know if you can understand it, so you understand something. You're understanding something that
I'm trying.
It's just that like I've been thinking in this like lately, not so much, but I think that you can answer this.
No, I think it's good. You know, I'll tell you about myself. So I studied architecture, and when I finished in Israel, then I went to America and I did a master and doctorate in architecture in Berkeley, California. Okay. Altogether, I spent almost 9 years to study architecture. And only then I started to, I said, okay, now I'm making movies. Okay. But the fact that it was slow, it's very slow, right? It's not that wild, because it gave me time not just to make a dream that we had 2 days ago, but to really think what I want to do, okay? For the group of friends, I had a legitimate activity to do a PhD in architecture. It's very serious, you know, it's respectable. At the same time, I could think about doing something very different. And so when I stopped to collect all the stamps of the academia, I said, I don't want to be an academician. And I went to do the film. My first film is called House, a documentary on one house, the story of one house in Jerusalem. Now it's 43 years ago. And it brought me a lot of trouble because my dear countrymen did not like it, okay, because I spoke about the Palestinians. And they said, why would we do that? Anyway, there are some people in my dear country, they think that if the filmmakers would not speak about the Palestinians, they would not exist. So that's what I explained. It's not because of cinema that reality exists or doesn't exist. But then I did not give up, and I made quite a lot of work. So I think that the fact that you do research into yourself is good. And you will find out at some point what you really want to do, and also if it's Proust or not Proust, if it's Joyce or not Joyce, whatever. You know. But this is, you know, in some way, it's a collective medium, right? Because we have to work collectively. And Marie-José did a very good photo of the way I work on the set. We'll see if we can share it with you. And at the same, so it's collective. If I don't know to work with a big group of people, sometimes 200 people, and to inspire them, to motivate them, to make them speak to each other, I should change the profession. I could be a writer. Writer, he sits, he writes. He doesn't need to communicate. It's between him and the paper, or a painter and the canvas. Cinema, like architecture, you need to transmit it to people. You know, this shot that you saw, it's also the creation of these people, not just me. You know, I had the idea, I know what I want to do, but these fantastic actors, extras, technicians, we work together. So it is not just to make them thank you. It's a reality. So it's I think that you need to really figure out how to make a film, how to do casting, how to work with actors. It took me time. At the beginning, when I did my first film, I was not interested in actors, because I was architect. So for me, it's people who can put the text, who can say the text. But I was not interested. I was interested in the design of the shot. Little by little, I got more interested. So I wish you a good journey into your own discovery.
Thanks. I have another one about about their approach to the biblical text. I mean, it's not philosophical. I'm not that religious person, but I'm really interested in the biblical text. I mean,
and by the way, it's even if we're not religious, like I'm not religious, it's good to challenge it. Because why? Because we tell this great. Because let's be clear, like it or not, but religions also did in the arts, very important, the literature, very important contribution. And it's good that the interpretation will come from people who are not necessarily religious. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's say if Pasolini makes these fantastic works, even if Benoit don't like religion. So if Pasolini works on this, the Evangel, he is challenging a traditional Catholic perception of the Evangel. Okay? If I'm taking the text of the book of Amos and I'm doing it, I divide it between men and women, Hebrew and Arabic, with this kind of context, I'm saying, first of all, it is a text written 3,000 years ago, and it's speaking about today, about the Middle East of today. Not just about Israel, about the crimes of the region, by Syria, by this. This guy, 3,000 years ago, spoke about it. So it's amazing that things change, but they also don't change. So, okay, you go ahead with the question.
It's about your creative process, I think. The first things you do is read the text, the Bible, and then you do the world observation and you mash up those things, or you watch an accident in the street and later you remember a text in the Bible.
People ask me many times, I cannot trace exactly the process when I decide to do something. At some point I decide, and luckily, because of I feel really privileged that a good group of people, of friends who contribute to my work, make it possible. But the text of Amos I knew from the very beginning, this particular text, and I like this guy. He's fearless, and he's not fearless in the modern consequences. In the period of monarchies, they could decapitate him, and he still is writing against the injustice, the social injustice of having poor people. I like him. So this text I knew it before, but this very accidental phone call from, I don't know if it was in Mexico City or Los Angeles, from Guillermo, it gave me a pretext to do it. That's it. Yes.
How, you just talked about how at the beginning you were not really interested in working with actors, and you did that documentary. And I would like to ask, taking into account how you interpret script, this really flexible document that just kind of makes you helps you to dig into the topic you want to work in. How do you work with actors with this very flexible script?
It's not so much the word flexible, it's not really. Because also you need, as I say, it's a very dubious thing. You need the structure, okay? And you need the point of departure. So the script is very useful. It's an intellectual exercise to put on paper ideas. But some of them will prevail and some not. and you should not cry. Let's say in a big film I did on the war, Kippur, there was a very expensive sequence that we wrote. I blocked half of Tel Aviv. It was an incredible crane, and when I stopped shooting it, it was supposed to be in the beginning. And when I stopped the shot, all the very big crew was standing and clapping hands and all. And then I went with one of my producers, French guy, Laurent, and he looked at me and said, I mean, why are you not happy? Why are you not happy? It's completely successful. So I said to him, it's too much. It's too much. If we start the film so spectacular, what will we say after? It's too much. But he said it costs so much money, we had to block the streets, the city hall, the machin, all of that. So he said, what do you want to do? I said, I think we should throw it to the garbage. He said, it costs a lot of money. I said, okay. You asked me what I want to do. So I'm telling you what. So he said, okay, what do you want to do? I said, I want very simply camera on a tripod. A guy crosses the street, cut, which we put the tripod somewhere else, cut. So we start very calm. And little by little, this boy is going into the hell of the war. But it should start calm. So sometimes it's not only that you wrote the scene, you actually shot it. Okay? But I think that you should not be intimidated, and if you think it's not good, it's not good, and that's it.
I'm sorry, but like also, I understand how you can be like critical and live in the present time and make decisions and not like attached to anything. But in terms of your work with your actors, do you sometimes build scenes with them, or do you have really like structured dialogues that you are free to take out or accept?
No, first of all, I like a lot the period of preparation, because it is a kind of a research you do, and I like to do it with people, not just myself. So let's say another film I did with a great Israeli actress, Yael Abekassis. She's here opening the film and closing it, okay? And she's a fantastic actress, and she's very beautiful, and she was a model, and she had a talk show and everything. And so everybody told me that I cannot cast her in the role of a religious woman in this film, Kadosh, that if you have the time, it will show in the Cineteca and so on. Because it's a very critical film on the religion. And they said, she's too beautiful to be, I said, no, on the contrary. And so I met Yael, I don't like formal auditions. I don't like this situation of the almighty director with sunglasses and the scary actresses and actors. And I don't think it gives it. Why? Because in cinema, not like in theater, you can be even a bit shy, and you can be a great performer. It's not like you're not on stage. So I told her, listen, let's have coffee, let's discuss it. We had coffee. I told her, listen, if you want I think you are okay. All my crew was against it. I told her, I think you are fine. You will do a great job. You will be fantastic. But you have to now, for 6 months, not do any talk show, any modeling, any of this kind of superficial work. You have to get into the head of a religious, observant woman. If it's okay with you, you have the job. But you cannot do the two at the same time. So it's, I leave it to you, you decide. So Yael told me, okay, and she kept it. And we went to Jerusalem to see the rabbi speaking, because religion is also about choreography. Like you move an object in a certain manner. So it's not just text. And so the way to work with actors is really to stimulate them to do also their own work. It's not like to tell them, it's not like to use them as, you tell them what to do, they do what they do, and so on. But I think I didn't answer your question, but it's a long story.
No.
It was good?
Yeah.
Yes.
How is your approach to documental, and how does it
Documentary?
Documentary, yeah, sorry. How is different your approach to documentary to the
Fiction.
Fiction, yeah.
I say about the documentary is a bit like archaeology. Okay, you excavate. Okay, but you have to be delicate because it's like if you go to do archaeology, you come with a bulldozer, you will not find anything, right? You will destroy everything. So you have to be delicate. And you have to listen to the people you speak with, and you construct with it. And fiction is like architecture. You build something out of your imagination or from the reality. So it's different. And I think that it's not the same. You know, people call it docudrama, this kind of. It's not. Documentary is a documentary. It's not reportage. Reportage is television. But a real documentary, there are some great documentary in the history of cinema. You probably see Fred Wiseman, the American, Pardon, who is French. You have great documentaries, but it's a different medium.
I have like a similar question. What's your approach to fiction, or what's your relationship with fiction? Because in your short film, well, the actor and the character always look direct to the camera, and your movie, Lila and Haifa, the character never looks to the camera, but the camera movement, I like these really slow camera movements, like in a documentary, like your WhatsApp voyeur in that movie, or the spectator was a voyeurist just watching the characters walking by the bar. So I don't know what's your relationship between fiction and documentary, or if you think that it's a separation between those things, or you don't see that separation. I don't know.
But you know, if I answer all your questions, what will you do after I leave?
I want to know what you think about that.
I think you should think about what I think, and we'll speak next time. Okay. Any other one? You want to see another short?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know how much time we have. Benoit, how much time we have? 15 minutes?
20 minutes.
He's always negotiating up. So I'll show you now another piece, a short one, 9/11. You have of everybody or just?
It's I guess, it's the 4 minutes.
No, it's 10 minutes, 11 minutes. That's it? So wait, don't start. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So, so this was another collective project, as I said, also Alejandro Inarito did.
The short.
What do you mean?
C'est le film entier, là.
No, I think it showed what we looked at. Okay. You should go to Marcus. It says Amos.
Yeah. So do you want me to play?
No.
Starting from.
No, it's a serial director, so each one did a piece. And I did one. If you can, if not, we'll keep talking. That's it. Yes.
Well, may I ask, what do you like about this stories that are told in just one space, in the last case one shot, and in the case of your movie, this first long shot, but also the whole movie being just...
Why they switched off the light?
like taking place in just this one bar, mainly. Like, what do you like about this unit?
No, this is a part of a trilogy that the principle is the entire film is shot in one location. And I think that it's interesting. It's what I explained that evening, that it's about the coincidence which is happening in human meetings. when they meet casually in some place.
But also about like this long shots. Like, what do you think you get or you search?
No, I think it's possible. I think that we have too much perfectionalized the montage, the editing. And also my own country is suffering a lot from this oversimplified presentation of the reality. So one of the ways to deal with it is the question also of rhythm. Because they condense it, they say that's the truth. They say no, I want to give you a complete block of time, not interrupted, and then you can figure out what is the real rhythm in which people speak to each other.
Thank you.
So the projection is resigned?
I think they're spotting the church. Or, well, they're figuring out the time clock.
I'm here with you.
I want to know if you feel that actual filmmaking or audiovisual production has changed the way of working for making a movie with all these TV series or streaming platforms making series.
Yes, definitely.
Has it changed for good, for bad? Does it change the way you're making movies?
Good and bad, you know it as well. Good is bad depends what they do with it. There is nothing good or bad in digital. You know, I remember that when it started, people said, "Oh, it's terrible. We like to edit with the scotch and masking." Okay, I didn't think it's terrible, you know, because the nice thing about digital editing and Final Cut Pro and all of that you can almost connect your brain with the editing, and it goes very fast, and it's also good. So there is for me there is no mystification. I don't need to smell the celluloid, but it depends what we do. If we do good things, it's good.
And the way the relationship with the audience has changed with all of these over production. What do you think about it?
It's true that the fact that people see most films now in streaming and not in cinemas. In a way, it makes the cinematheques and the festivals even more important, because it's the only place you can really see the film as a collective experience. People sitting in a place, watching it, not looking at it on the phone, with a relatively good sound and good screening. But this is declining, so the cinematheques and the festivals become important. But it's also something which is bigger than us. We just have to try to make good films, that's all. It's simple. So, what's the solution? We can see the film or not?
Non, je crois qu'il y a une difficulté avec ils n'ont pas réussi à télécharger le film, le troisième extrait.
And it's the fault of the Israeli embassy or the French embassy?
They're figuring out.
Always go, always.
I have a question. You say that investigation is a really important part of your job, of your work before.
Sorry, I didn't.
You say that investigation is a really important part of your work before making a film.
Yeah.
But how do you approach to that? Well, all the information you get or all the archive. How do you discriminate the information in order to get a script, or
maybe I'll invite Marie-José because she did speak and why don't you come over and speak about writing? Let her work a bit.
It's about the research. Well, it's true that the research is very important in Amos' work, but the research doesn't stop, it never stops. Meaning that, and also research, it doesn't stop, but it's also a kind of, as a screenwriter, for me it's very well, you can never stop documenting. and it will be a way to escape the moment where you have to write. So you need to do some research, but you also need to do when to stop the research at the phase of the screenplay. This is very, very difficult because the way that Amos works is not about, I was saying to Joao, his producer from Brazil, Amos' work is not about psychology.
Clap hand to Joao.
Yeah. Amos' work is never about psychology of the characters. It's about human situations and locations and the way to deal with this location and time passing, and then you will reflect on it. So at the phase of the screenplay, the most difficult thing is to get informed, of course, documentation, but to understand what is the mood of the film project that Amos has, and that he did not yet explicitly explain, because he doesn't know. So the screenplay itself is a kind of test and error experience, until he gets something that he can agree with, to start with the actors. And then the actors themselves, they will also do some research that they will bring in, speak about it without me, with Amos, and then they will believe that they know what the film is about, but it's not yet true, because the research that Amos is doing is now continuing with all the other people who work on the film, mainly his director of photography, his music designer, and all that is continuing the research mood. And then I say it as I see it. Now comes the moment of the shooting, and what Amos has done now is bringing people together, committed to doing this film. And now they discover that the film is an experience that is happening here and now, the shooting. And we all have to make it successful. So they feel very committed. If I could show you the picture that okay. There is a picture that I took on Laila in Haifa. It was taken by me. I was on the first day of shooting, and they started with the scene, of the opening scene of the film when Gil is being beaten, and then there is the rain, and it was a sequence shot, quite complicated to do. So they did it, and then all the team, actors, technicians, waiters, water girls, everybody rushed behind Amos to watch the video screen to see how the shot was. So this is what Amos wants to achieve, that the shooting experience for him is as important as the whole preparatory process. Something is happening there that will make the film, it's not mystical what I'm describing, but since his work is also about trying to bring contradictions and the necessity to work together, what's happening on the set is also key to what he will do afterwards in the editing to continue the process, because the editing, it still will continue the research process. At some point, Amos says, you have to stop that because we have to release the film and to go to the next project, and we will continue the process. And this is why I like working with Amos, because I work on projects, film projects, but I also work on a body of work, that every film is related to the other one. There is questions being raised. And Amos is looking at new ways to formulate them. Maybe he finds answers for himself, I can find answers for myself, Joao will find answers, and you will find other answers. That's maybe Amos too.
And she will speak on Friday if you bring the students at the Cineteca on 2 films, on Golan, which I also have Bertolucci is playing, and different directors, Samuel Fuller, Hannah Shibula, and so on. And also another film I did in France with Léa Seydoux. Léa Seydoux, she got the Palme for. So she's the lead. And Marie-José will introduce the 2 films.
I just want to add something about your way of dealing with screenplays, and for me, the consequence as a screenwriter. since Amos is not working with psychology of characters, you cannot build a screenplay in which each scene will be so essential to the story itself that he would be obliged to follow the line. The scene there has to be some other rationale or logic inside even already from the screenplay that will allow him to treat this piece as a scaffolding for the film to be. And then the scaffolding can get out, yeah.
And Joe, how do you deal with this? Because it's so organic, but I'm sure it has to have some scheme to operate in reality.
Actually, we are about to do the first film together, so I'm quite scared.
You're still figuring that.
No, I'm just kidding. I think, we have two amazing projects together. I'm very lucky to be in this position as a producer. I'm very excited to be, involved with Gitai and Amos. And I think one of them is the letters, that Amos had talked about, of his mother with Walter Sadler as well directing. I think this is, this fits perfectly with what Gitai is saying, because, there is so many beautiful moments as well, so many reflections on how, that story can go through. The scaffolding is a fantastic metaphor for that. On the other hand, I think we have, investigative thriller, to deal with. That I imagine that will have some more formality, because then, it's a scene by scene to construct the ending, and it's an amazing script. It's very strong. So I imagine that, the scenes will have to be more or less the way they are. But we haven't talked into that detail.
So you're having a meeting right now.
Amos and Marie-Josée will speak furthermore this afternoon at 4 at the Cinema IFAL.
But Benoit, because Marie-Josée will introduce some films tomorrow. Do you know what time it is?
Yes, it's at 6 p.m. at the Cineteca for Roses Acredito, for Rosa Credi, and at 8...
That's the one with Léa Seydoux. That's
Okay.
at 6 o'clock tomorrow.
And at 8, the Golem. Or
The
Golem.
Spirit of Exile. See you tomorrow.
Or this
Or
afternoon.
today.
Or today.
Not today, yeah.